Welcome back. In a moment we'll examine what Brexit could mean for the EU. But first, here are some other stories to keep an eye on. The Brazilian authorities are continuing to search for a number of inmates who escaped a prison in the north of the country. The prisoners fled the facility during a riot which lasted 17 hours and left 56 people dead. For the first time in more than half a century, a Volvo was not the car of choice for Swedes. In 2016, the Volkswagen Golf took the greater market share and accounted for almost 6% of car sales in Sweden. And President-elect Donald Trump has undermined a claim made by the North Korean government that the country is developing weapons capable of striking America. Mr. Trump said simply, "It won't happen." Now, let's talk about Brexit. It's due to begin for real by the end of March, but beyond that, no one really knows how it will unfold or what it will mean for Britain or Europe. Akash Paun is a fellow of the Institute for Government, a UK-based think tank, and still with us is Eunice Goyes, an associate professor of politics at Richmond University here in London. So, can they get Brexit underway this year, or do you think there will be further delays?
Well, there is still a striking amount of uncertainty, actually, about how the Brexit process is going to unfold. So, as you said, I mean, the government is committed to starting the process, triggering Article 50, so signalling its desire to leave the EU in March or by the end of March. However, there could still be further delays. We're still awaiting a very important Supreme Court judgment on the process that the government is going to have to follow in terms of getting parliamentary authorization before it can start Brexit. So that could delay things. The government doesn't actually have a very large majority in Parliament in the first place. So there's still quite a lot of uncertainty, even about that starting point, let alone the destination of all of this.
Eunice, what do you think is top of the shopping list? Is it this trade relationship and a new trade deal?
Yes, that's going to be pretty fundamental, though the rules on the freedom of movement are also going to be very, very important. The two issues, I think, are in tandem. They have to be looked at together, because the European Union will make concessions on trade depending on what the British government is ready to concede with regarding the freedom of movement. And it looks like the British government is not very keen on accepting still some rules, some freedom of movement. So these two things, these are the two top issues that will dominate the Brexit negotiations. But the big problem is that the British government has not yet agreed. There is no consensus within the government about what to do, about what is desirable, what is achievable. So they have not yet reached the point where, well, this is our plan, so let's see how the other 27 member states are going to accept it.
And we're not sure if that apparent confusion is actual confusion, or whether they're just trying to spread confusion so that the other side doesn't know what's going on. How locked in do you think is this deal about if you want free movement of people, or rather, let's put it the other way around, if you want a good trade deal, Europe as a body will insist on free movement of people?
Well, I think it's fairly clear that there's a trade-off between these two things. I mean, Boris Johnson, our Foreign Secretary, famously said that he was in favour of having cake and eating it. So yes. It basically starting with the perspective that you could have both these things. You could have complete single market access, and we could take back control of our borders and impose some kind of restrictions.
That seems ludicrous as we stand here today.
Well, yes, I mean the perspective of the EU institutions and the leaders of the most important EU states is clearly that those four freedoms that underpin the single market, so free movement of goods, services, capital, and people, are indivisible and come as a package. So if we do, as the UK, want to take back control of our borders and limit free movement of people, there seems to be a price to be paid in access.
With the other ones.
Yeah.
OK, why do we need a trade deal at all? I mean, America, for instance, has traded with the EU as a bloc right up to now, and continues to do so. There's no formal trade deal.
Yeah, of course. I mean, countries all around the world trade with each other under WTO rules, World Trade Organization rules. without necessarily having done bilateral or regional trade deals with one another. But the UK's starting point is, of course, very different to the USA or China or Russia or countries over the other side of the world. We are so embedded at the moment in the European economy. All our major trading partners are across the
We're so heavily
Channel.
invested in it, we've got to stick with that model.
Absolutely, yeah. So if we suddenly go from that to WTO rules with high tariffs and other barriers to trade, I think that's going to be quite economically
And
costly.
Eunice, is there an imperative for Europe, even with Britain now outside, to sort this quickly? Because the other nations of the world are moving ahead, aren't they? One's thinking of trans-Pacific partnerships and things like that. Deals are being done, which will favour those trading nations.
Well, the imperative is there, but the European Union is not known for solving crisis quickly.
They don't do anything quickly, does it?
They don't do anything. The European Union doesn't do anything quickly. It takes a long time, and it's normal. There are democratic rules and principles to take into account. It's 27 governments that will have to have a say on the whole Brexit deal. It's the institution. So, and it is then also a hugely bureaucratic process. And the European Union will be concentrated in preventing other Brexits from happening. So their focus will be on, well, if there is any other country who feels kind of tempted to try what Britain has tried, let's send a very strong signal that what kind of consequences they will suffer if they'll try to follow that route.
You see, all this super economy stuff, if you're just a humble trader, you know, you're running a small business, you're part of a small company in Britain, is this year going to feel very different?
Well, we're not going to exit the European Union this year, of course. I mean, the process will get underway.
So life goes on much as it always has?
There'll be a degree of uncertainty, of course. I mean, if your company's trying to do deals with suppliers or customers that stretch over a number of years, that may become a bit more difficult because you won't know the context in which you'll be trading 2 or 3 years down the line. But I mean, as far as 2017 is concerned, I think that's one thing we can be pretty certain about. We are going to be a member of the European Union throughout this year, and you know, probably for at least another 2 years.
Currency exchange rates? I mean, if as an exporter, for instance, you've had a good few months because of the exchange rates have changed in your favour since the referendum in the UK.
If you're an exporter, of course, the weakness of the pound is helpful. I mean, the euro.
Do you see any volatility there as this process plays out?
Uncertainty always brings with it volatility, of course. I'm not really qualified to speculate on exchange rate market movements, but I mean, I think that's a general principle that, you know, markets like stability and certainty in terms of the legal and regulatory framework. And as this process of Brexit gets underway, along with the elections we've been talking about in various other major Eurozone economies, I mean, there are going to be various sources of uncertainty.
It strikes me that uncertainty is in great supply, certainty is in very short supply, looking ahead to this calendar year. Yes.
Yes, so it's not going to be a happy, cheerful year, because uncertainty means that people are going to be fearful. They are not ready to bet or to make huge investments on a number of things, from, you know, buying the big house to larger companies to make big investment decisions about, well, this is why we're going to develop our new car or any other bit of technology that they could create a plant in Britain. So uncertainty is always, I think it's a breeding ground for not very nice things, politically and economically.
And politically, of course, one country is gone. There will be a temptation for other countries in Europe, certainly as part of the election campaigns we've alluded to in Germany and France, to say, I wonder if life will be better outside for us too.
Well, yeah, I think this is the risk for the UK, that even if sort of an objective economic analysis would suggest the EU should do a kind of generous deal with the UK to ensure that two-way trade continues, the politics in several of the major EU economies, it's not just Germany and France. Holland has an election. Italy's probably going to have an election as well this year. So in all of those places, they have their own populist, Eurosceptic movements challenging the mainstream order. And so therefore the risk for the UK is they're going to want to send a signal that life outside is tough.
Akash Bourne and Eunice Ghosh, thank you very much. We end with our Insight Bite, a little something we feel you should know. And this time, it's a newly uncovered pyramid. Found in the Ancash region of northern Peru, the structure was previously hidden by thick vegetation. Researchers investigating the site say they believe it was used during the Incan civilization. The discovery may mean the area carried more weight in Incan society than previously thought. The structure is thought to be what was called an ushnu and was used for significant ceremonies. It remains unclear whether it was built before or after the arrival of the Inca, although it's not every day you stumble across a new pyramid. And that's all for now. I'm Martin Stanford. That was Insight.